Welcome, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Next Level's live Facebook streaming interview series, where we bring people who are up to amazing things in our community, outside of our community, leaders in the world, and to speak about a life of transformation and what you're up to, and just get everybody pumped about all the amazing things that they can be doing on the planet. So this evening is no exception. We've got Daralyse Lyons, personal friend, wonderful, like one of the most, well, we'll get into this soon, but one of the most hardest working people that I know, actually. Making massive moves out there in the Philadelphia area and beyond. And so I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's really great. And it's an honor to be asked. And I'm always excited to talk about what I'm up to. So yeah, thank you so much.
Awesome. Yeah. And you're like, typically when we speak, you're up to like 5 different new things. And so I feel like we have to spend like an hour catching up on like all the incredible things, because you're just constantly up leveling yourself. And ever since I've known you, you've been like that. And it seems like even this last year, it's even like taken off at crazy, crazy levels. So
yeah. I mean, I will say major plug, like major shout out to the Next Level trainings, because I think just in a huge way, like I've let go of a lot of the barriers, the self-imposed barriers, right, that were holding me back. And like I've always been a hard worker, but now I feel like I'm working more intelligently and effectively.
Wow. Yeah. And maybe doing more of the things that you're really lit up about.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I want to tell the story of how you and I met, because I felt like it was just so serendipitous, really. So Dara and I met literally at a networking event, and you were there for like 45 minutes.
Yeah, I did not want to be there. So I went like under duress. I did not want to be there. I had stuff to do, you know, because I'm always like doing stuff. And I just showed up because my marketing person was hosting it. And I wanted to support him and support what they were up to. And so I went to this event, and then we were in line at the food, right? There was like a food buffet.
Food there. I think it was at WeWork on Market Street, yeah?
Yep, yeah. Before COVID, like when people could actually work.
Yeah. It was actually a great event, but I was there for probably 45 minutes. You were there very briefly.
Yep.
You and I like exchange, like I don't know, we were like, hey, this is what you're supposed to do at a networking thing. So I struck up a conversation with you, and I felt like you were really open and cool and interesting, and you were into film. And at that point I was like very, very much like wanting to figure out how to get into the scene in Philadelphia around film. And you were like, yes, I've been in tons of movies. I was like, what?
Well, I don't know that I said I've been in tons of movies, but I do acting. Like I did a ton of acting and still do a ton of acting. But yeah, I mean, I think we had like an instant friendship chemistry or whatever. And it was great. It was really great. Yeah.
It was great. So you gave me and this is like how, like, I'm such a promoter, right? Like you gave me your business card. I was like, oh yeah, I'm totally going to follow up with her. She's doing awesome stuff. And in my mind, you said you were in tons of movies. I'm sure you didn't actually say that, but in my mind, I was like, oh my God, she's like totally fit. And you were actually, you're local famous for sure.
I think I'm like recognizable, but I can certainly leave my house and nobody bothers me. And most of the time I'm like in my pajamas. So I'm very approachable, very approachable.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you made an impression on me, but it wasn't until like a week later that I actually took your business card out and looked at it. And it was like the heavens were like shone a light down. It was like transformational storyteller. And I was like, oh my God, like that's what I've been thinking that I am, because like, how do I marry transformation with Next Level and also, you know, making movies and being a storyteller? And I was like, I think that's what I am. And like, she literally is already doing that. Like at this level, I'm like baby steps, you know? And so I was like, oh my gosh, I must get in touch with you. And that just started, like, we just started connecting, right? Like every couple of weeks. And it was like, you're like a sister on a parallel life, but just like different experiences, but somehow very, very similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And I always appreciated how real you are, you know, like I always felt like, I feel like sometimes in my life, I end up sometimes being like I don't know, an authority or something, or like I'm supposed to have it all figured out and I don't. Like, you know, we're all just in this messy business of life together and learning and growing. And I always felt like you were, as a friend and as a person, you know, and with the work that you do, you're always like you always met me where I was and like challenged me to be better, but also made it okay that I like, I'm sometimes not okay, you know? And so it was really cool to meet someone that I had that connection with, because it's not a common thing in my life. It tends to be like a little bit like people are looking up to me and I'm like, but you don't know the real, like, why are you looking up to me?
You don't know what happens when I'm
right. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a beautiful, and how awesome is it that you can hold space for people and still be figuring it out on your own?
Yeah. Well, I think we all are. I mean, the minute that we say that we've arrived is the minute that we start to die, that our lives start to be meaningless, right? Like, I think that it's always a process of learning and growing and evolving and transforming and like plateauing as well, which I struggle with personally. I hate to just
right.
Not
since I've known you.
Yeah.
You've definitely like always been like, shh.
Yeah, no, I'm either going like straight up or I'm plunging down for a minute and then going straight up. Yeah.
The plunges are like, you know, pretty quick. So let's talk about some of the things that you're up to, because truly they are actually, in fact, extraordinary things. Yeah. So I'll say that the project I'm most passionate about at this moment, the thing that I'm most lit up by, is I'm working on a project about demystifying diversity, where I've interviewed close to 100 different people from you know, all walks of life. Like some people might be academics, and I got to interview a U.S. senator, which was like super cool. Or actually, he's like he's a Philly senator, so I don't know how that works because I'm like not in that world. You know, and I got to interview just experts, like one of the leading experts on de-escalation and all these various topics, right, pertaining to diversity. And then I'm breaking them up into episodes. And creating a podcast. So the podcast is going to be like one episode per community about like various topics pertaining to diversity and marginalization and feeling othered. Because really, you know, my perspective is that we're all human beings and we all deserve love and empathy and connection. And sometimes I think that if you can really humanize someone who might seem different to you, right? Or like you might feel like, oh, well, we have nothing in common. Mm-hmm. Then you start talking to people and meeting them on their level. And it's like, oh my God, well, like we have so much in common. And also I believe that it's impossible to hurt someone when you've humanized them. Right. So like, I think that that's part of the project. And then also because I am first and foremost a writer, like I came to the work that I do through writing. I'm writing a book that's going to be released around the same time as the podcast. And podcasts tend to be a little more informational, and books, I feel like I can tell people what to do a little bit more, and I like that. You're like, actually, that's really what I most like.
Yeah, right. I most like being bossy, but in a nice way. So it's a good blend. And so those are some things that I'm working on. And then, I'm also teaching a class. It starts tomorrow for the Free African Society, and inspiring young people, because right now with COVID, like a lot of students have not been getting they haven't had equal access to education and those kinds of opportunities. And so that's something I'm really passionate about, is educating our youth and like inspiring them to be able to reach for their vision and live by their values. So cool. So you're actually teaching that class. Yeah. Have you taught classes before, or is this new territory for you? Well, I have. Yeah, I've taught before, but what's different is that like I'm like a long time out of that high school world and that high school space. I did used to coach high school volleyball maybe 4 or 5 years ago now. Okay. But yeah, so like being able to relate to people who are young, like I don't know how that's going to go, but luckily I have my sister is actually like, she works in childhood education and she's like kind of well versed in that. So I asked her to be my TA, and like hopefully she'll help me to be able to filter my content in an appropriate way. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. And is that in person, or is that going to be online? Or? It's online. Yeah, okay. Everything is online. Yeah, it's the way of the future. It's the way of the current, and probably the way of the future as well. Yeah, yeah. Crazy.
Oh my gosh. Okay, cool. So I didn't know that. I did know about demystifying diversity, which I was like, wow, what extraordinary timing that you just happened to be working on this before everything occurred this last week.
Yeah. I mean, it's really been a beautiful unfolding. I started off, I was doing some journalistic work and I got to cover a story about Jewish generational trauma in the aftermath of the Holocaust. And so I was able to interview, a number of people. I had the blessing to interview some Holocaust survivors and then their children and grandchildren and various people also who work in a more academic capacity and people who are like raising money for awareness for the Holocaust. And I just found that I've been doing a lot of work over the years, like, I've been writing and I've been doing different things, but I just found like when I started sitting down with people and learning about their pain points and connecting with them as a human, like I just felt my heart, I want to say my heart broke and then expanded. And so that's what I found that this work has really given me. And it's so meaningful. I really need to work less, but I'm like so inspired that I can't.
You're like the epitome of somebody that's like, well, I'm totally living my vision with my career. So what does it mean to just take time off? Because like you're so in your interests and your passion and your contribution.
Yeah, well, thanks. I feel like it is a contribution, and but I also think when you're contributing, I mean, this is my experience. When I'm contributing, I feel like I get more than I give. Like I can't believe the things that people tell me and their willingness to be vulnerable with me. Like, I'm just like, I feel so like I just want to be good enough, right, to like do justice to their story. And so it feels like such an honor and a privilege and a responsibility. And yeah, I mean, it feels so great.
That's so cool. So were you always this, what would the word be? Were you always this responsible? Were you always really like so clear about, like, you're such an honorable woman. You were so
oh my God. Really? Oh my God.
Yeah. To be like an honorable human being.
Yeah. Well, ask like anybody who knew me 10 or 15 years ago, and they will not tell you that story. Like, I think I came by my value system like the hard way, right? By years and years of not living in accordance with my value and feeling super empty as a result of that, and being very motivated by like my own agenda and what I thought I wanted. And I feel like I kind of just bottomed out with that. And then I realized that like I actually feel better if I'm doing things I can be proud of. And like I try to have a policy in my life that there's nothing that's happening in my life that I couldn't share openly, that like nothing that I'm ashamed of. I mean, I might not necessarily like want to open the doors wide and let people into all of my life, but there's nothing that I'm like embarrassed by or
you feel that that's not in alignment.
Yeah, right. But it took a long time to get to that place. And really it took a lot of being out of alignment, like to be willing to be like, oh no, it actually feels better if I stick with my values no matter what. And I'm imperfect, but I don't mind apologizing and trying to do better.
Yeah, and you're always doing your best. There's a term in Japanese language that's called kaizen, and it's like always continuously improving. And, many of the people that are successful in the world and in their careers are living by that moral compass and that code of ethics, and also just like actions speak louder than words. But really you so embody like, how can I up level myself? How can I keep going and keep, living life on the skinny branches in a lot of respects. I mean, it's really awesome.
Well, there's a Denzel Washington quote that I really love, and it's something to the effect of like, keep falling, but fall forward, or, like, can you fall forward? And I feel like so often, Alexa, I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I have no idea what I'm doing. Like I got my first journalistic assignment and I was like, I've never done, like, I don't know what to do, right? Like when I wrote my first book, I'm like, I don't know what to do. But I feel like I try my best to like say yes and go for something that it's not completely impossible for me to reach, because that's just a setup for failure. But I say yes to things that it's like, okay, I feel like I can, like, if I just climb up to my tiptoes, I can reach this thing. And that, it feels so, I think growth is one of the most rewarding things as part of the human experience. And so, you know, I don't know, like a lot of times I feel super overwhelmed or in over my head, but it's always stretchy and it's always so like worth it. Cause I think, you know, I don't want to stagnate ever. And I love to learn. And so yeah, it's a fun journey for sure.
Yeah, it's really cool. That's awesome. So yeah, so are you still doing a lot of so you're an improv actress as well, and you're part of like, the professional comedy troupe, yes?
Yep.
At the Philly Improv Theatre, and also sports both?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Comedy Sports is a nationally recognized like improv troupe. They've got different like divisions all throughout the nation and actually the world. Like we've got a branch in Manchester, England, and like all sorts of things. And yeah, and so I'm like, I'll be honest, I don't love the virtual like improvisation because I tend like I'm a big sort of like person and this narrow screen, right? Like I can't kind of figure out what to do with my body and how to be. So I haven't really been doing very much. I've gone to like maybe a couple practices, but I haven't been performing so much. And I'll probably suck it up at some point and be okay with doing the virtual. Yeah, I know. Cause you know, at first I kept thinking, and I'm sure a lot of people thought this, like, oh, well, like we'll get back in a couple months, you know, or we'll get back in whatever. And now it looks like probably for the rest of the year, at least there's not going to be in-person stuff. So yeah, I miss it.
How many people are in your troupe? It's like 6 people or 7 or something?
Oh, no. So like there's, for Comedy Sports, I think there's like 60 or 70 of us in Philly. And then we perform like, you know, it's based on availability, et cetera. So it's not a huge deal to take a little bit of time off, but I feel like the rust is building up, you know? So I need to like exercise my funny. So yeah, so you know, there's definitely, it definitely feels like I miss that. I do some acting, and I was also we were supposed to be starting filming a movie right about now, and so that's like taking a back seat. But it feels like the things that I'm like, it feels like the opportunities that I'm not doing right now are still going to be there on the other side of it. Like it doesn't feel like I'm letting go of anything. It just feels like
your current project is really what it sounds like and what it feels like. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And you're getting so much out of it, and it's such a contribution. I mean, it's so important. I apologize. My strap keeps falling off here.
Well, that's what happens with live, right? Like,
keep it in the same place. So enjoy. So for you, with the interviews and with the diversity work, I mean, so when we spoke the other day about it, you were saying that really it's like noticing that there is no other, actually. Like because you've interviewed like 100 people or so.
Yeah, it's close to that now. It'll probably be 100 by the time that I finish all the interviews. So yeah, like it's a weird balance, right? Because on the one hand, we all have our own individual experiences. We all have our cultural affiliations. We all have like our histories, our family systems, and that is all so important, right? And so there's no, like, I would never want to invalidate that for someone. And I think to ignore those things does a disservice to someone's personal experience.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like we all feel the same feelings. We all feel joy and love and hope and sadness and heartbreak. And so I think that what happens is it's a very human tendency. Like we want to categorize things. We want to classify things. So you see someone who might have a different external appearance than you, or might have like a different family background. And there's this natural tendency to be like, oh, that is other, you know, and I am, and this is me. And I see the world, like I did an interview with a woman and she described human beings as Venn diagrams, like a series of Venn diagrams. And she said, you know, if you're not looking for the connections in the area of overlap, like then you're looking in the wrong places, right? And so I think no matter what your family system or no matter what your upbringing, like there are areas of overlap that we as human beings share. And the more that we can focus on those, the easier it'll be to really love people and like lift each other up and, you know, and connect from a place of human, like connect with humans. Yeah.
And so you're doing interviews on all kinds of other, right? It's not just racial diversity.
Yeah. So I did, I've done like 9 different topics that we're covering right now. So one is like the Jewish generational trauma and the aftermath of the Holocaust, mixed race identity. I'm biracial, right? And like, so looking at why a lot of people who happen to be like of a similar ethnic background as me will identify just with their minority race. So like looking at why that is and where that comes from. Muslim American culture and like othering in the wake of 9/11 and the way that like people like Islamophobia and just the disgustingness of that and the brutality of that. Black Lives Matter and the interaction, the criminalization of Blackness and the ways that police are operating with a lot of systemic racism. And I want to be clear that like all of us it's systemic, right? It's not just the police. And so there's a total of 9 different, I'm doing one episode on like body diversity because there's a lot of discrimination against people based on like the size and shape of their body and the pervasive nature of that.
Around cognitive abilities as well.
Yeah. I did an episode on being differently abled and the way that like, people might think in non-neurotypical ways, but like they have a lot to offer and like we shouldn't want everybody to think and be and act the same way. And so there's just a whole lot that I'm doing and I'm learning so much. Like there's certain topics that I know a lot about because it's like in my world and, or I'm like have a tangential relationship or someone in my life or whatever. So I like have an entry point and then there's certain things I'm like, I don't know. And I'm going to ask questions because I want to learn. Like I want to be a better human. And there's things that I don't know as a person and judgments that I have that I want to like, I want to figure it out. I want to improve.
Yeah, that's so great. Great. Well, yeah. So your journey has just been inspiring. I mean, we've known each other for like a year and a half, maybe 2 years.
Maybe 2. Yeah. Times on itself. Yeah.
Times like sisters from another mother, but during this entire time, like just witnessing you growing and stretching and being a leader in the community, like when you came through Next Level, you enrolled 32 people.
Yeah.
VIP, and a lot of those were just on the strength of your relationships with people. Like they trust you. Like they really look up to you. They trust your judgment because you're one of these people that's always steering people in a direction because you've just had a lot of life experience. You have so much wisdom and so much, you've pushed yourself so then you can therefore be a resource for other people.
Yeah.
And, so it's just been cool to witness you continuing to do that and up-leveling. And, you started off inspiring and now you're really out there doing the things that you're even more excited about and, at a larger level, I see.
Right. Well, I really learned from my Next Level training. I learned vulnerability and I learned empathy. Like I didn't know that before. So like I was super good at getting people to do what I wanted them to do, but like I didn't care how, right? So I was like super bossy and like, and now my experience is just very different in that I feel like I connect with people at a heart level more often. And so, people thank me a lot more now. Like before they used to be like, all right, fine. Like I'll get you off my back. Yeah. Right. But I feel like I learned a lot about like, just really connecting from a place of intimacy and being willing to be the one who didn't have all the answers and being willing to be the humble servant leader, which I think is a really interesting mix, right? Like how do you think well of yourself and own your talents and your strengths, but also really believe in the talents and strengths of other people and want to highlight and amplify those.
Yes, absolutely. I'm there. Mary Jenkins just jumped on. She said, good evening. So I wanted to give her a shout out. She's one of the main people who was commenting. So
yes. Well, hi, Mary. Yeah. Good evening.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Coupling. So it is interesting. It's like I think there's a common misconception around leadership and being a leader, that you have to have everything figured out and you have to know more and you have to really kind of like, there's a distinction between like authority, being an authority, and being a leader. And when you can really step into, I mean, obviously being an authority on certain issues makes sense, but nobody knows everything. And so for us to be pretending like we've got all the answers is just like impossible, really.
Yeah. Well, and I think a huge thing for me has been admitting what I don't know, and then also admitting what I don't want to know. There's certain things about my life and my work. Like, I don't ever want to be an audio engineer, right? So I've outsourced those kinds of things. And I used to think I had to do everything myself, but like, I have a really great assistant working for me, and she's awesome, and she's so good at the things I'm not good at. And so I'm just like, yes, go do this thing, and like, yeah, I'll train you and I'll mentor you and I'll like give you a lot of love, but also I don't want to control anybody. Like, I used to be super controlling and micromanaging, and believe it, like, I am still there at times. I don't have everything all figured out, but I just feel like I'm softer, you know?
You're definitely softer. You are definitely softer. And it's beautiful to see. I mean, it's like when we round away those edges that we all into the trainings with, you know, and just live it. Yeah, I think it's like, it's humbling to see, because it is like, the more that you know, the more you realize that you don't actually know. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. And I mean, to sit with people, right? Like, I've sat with people who have told me about some of the worst experiences in their life, right? Like surviving Nazi Germany, like being in the concentration camp, like just things that are soul eviscerating, right? And to be able to sit with someone and know that, like, oh my God, like, you lived through that, right? Like, lived through persecution, lived through bigotry, hatred. I interviewed a gender non-binary person because I did an episode on LGBTQIA issues, and like, to be told by someone like, yeah, my mother stopped told me that her love for me was conditional and she no longer loves me or wants me in her life. Like, and to be able to sit from someone who lived through that and like found a way to be resilient and create community and all these things. I just feel like, oh my God, like, this is how I want to be as a human being. And so I'm learning so much from being taken into people's sacred space and taken into their lives and their hearts.
Awesome. That's great. Those are amazing words of wisdom to live by. Like, it's like, hey, connect with humanity, be a part of. When you're a part of, you really can't, there's nothing that you can do except have gratitude and appreciation for how incredibly powerful and you know, just amazing humans are. And not even just humans, like, humans are absolutely amazing, but this whole thing is amazing.
Yeah.
All the resources available to us, and like all of the abundance that's there. It's like, wow, what a bizarre and beautiful experiment this whole thing is.
Yeah. And I know you're super big into environmentalism and stuff. And like, so just to look at like this planet and all the people in it are so resilient. Like, I can't even believe, and it's really sad that it often takes trauma to be aware, be cognizant of that resilience, because I actually don't think we need to hurt in order to heal or in order to grow. But you know, for me, like, finding trauma as that entry point, often when I'm talking with people, it makes me aware of the resilience of human beings. And part of why I want to do this work is because I would really like it if I could perhaps keep some people from having to walk through the trauma that othering perpetrates. Yeah,
let's learn from others. Learn from others and not get on the same path, right? Let's be wise. So awesome. Well, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Thank you for just being an awesome human on the planet that inspires so many people. 20 published books. 20 published books. Actress, coach, writer, transformational storyteller, journalist, activist, just a great friend and an incredible daughter. Like, you know, I hope that we're connected forever and ever. You are my tribe, and I just constantly learn from you and love going through this journey. And inspiring each other, and it's awesome. So thank you for being here this evening with us. Hopefully everybody.
Thank you.
And yeah, let's talk again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.